Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Most Important Conversations daily meditations. We run these Monday through Friday, and each meditation begins with a talk. All of our talks are focused around the theme of liberation, and the content of the talks is derived from our ontological recreation program called Whole Life Architecture, where participants are working through the whole life architecture body of work in the interest of recreating themselves and their lives so that they're living a life by design as opposed to tolerating a life by default. You can find out more at TMICglobal.com about whole life architecture. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring this theme inside the liberation work of suffering and how to move through suffering, and how suffering is a condition that we are also the creator of in our life, because we get attached to things, we get attached to people, we get attached to stories about how our life is supposed to go. We get trapped in our conditioning, which leads to more and more suffering. But it is largely a self-inflicted wound. And we've been talking over the last few days about compassion as a state of being, which begins with compassion for oneself, taking care of oneself, and learning to develop trust in oneself. We spoke yesterday about how compassion is not simply an emotional state that we feel towards others. In fact, actually, compassion as a true state precedes any emotions that you feel. Compassion is another experience you have when you enter a state of liberation. When you enter a state of liberation, acceptance for what is occurs. We are no longer looking towards the future or the past for answers. We are in the moment. And we have this experience that we call compassion, which is sort of a total acceptance, a total all is one experience that we have, where we start to have space for how others are, for how the world is, and for who we are and how we are in that world. And when we can access this state of compassion, something magical starts to happen within us, which is the strengthening of self-trust. When we get to full acceptance, and compassion is the experience of full acceptance, full approval for who we are and how the world is, even though in our perfectionist mind, we can look at ourselves, or we can look at others, or we can look at the world, and we can say, yes, it can be improved. It should be like this. This needs to stop. And there will always be those kinds of situations that we'll experience for ourselves, that we'll always be able to pick something out in ourselves, others, or the world. And from that critical mind perspective, that perfectionist mind perspective, we'll be able to imagine how it could be better. But that is not a state of liberation, because as soon as we start to look at the world through that lens and get attached to it, I mean, it's one thing to be able to observe it and let it go, but it's another thing to see how something could be better, how you could be better, how someone else could be better, and to start to ruminate on it, and to start to obsess over it, and to start to make it part of your identity to fix. And when we enter into that type of mindset, we're no longer in acceptance, and therefore we're no longer in compassion. And it becomes very difficult to establish and create a relationship to ourselves from a place of trust, because suddenly our mind is looking at how everything could be better versus finding approval for how everything is whole, complete, and perfect as it is, with room to evolve. Now, the reason that we often obsess over how things are going external to us in what we call the world of effects is because our brain loves certainty. And so our brain is always looking for ways to improve. In fact, I would even suggest that the whole premise of self-development and personal improvement and personal growth has actually only exacerbated the problem of having people not trust themselves. Because the whole premise of personal development is that there is something that is missing in you. There is something that needs to be improved upon. And while evolution and growth is a natural course of what it means to be alive, to obsess over it is where the problem gets in. You know, trees don't obsess over their growth. The rest of nature, you look at animals, they're not there obsessing over their growth, and yet they are growing, they are developing, they are evolving. There's full approval and acceptance because they are only operating from instinct. They don't have this creative mind that devolves into a critical mind. The same mind that we have that critiques ourselves and others in the world, when approached and accessed through a liberated state, transforms from critical to creative. Suddenly, when we're in the creative space, we enter into the state of compassion. We've been liberated from our conditioning, and it's no longer the focus. The focus is of what we are creating now and next. And so when we're in creativity, when we're in that experience and that state of creativity, critique cannot exist in the same space at the same time. The thing about creativity, though, is in order for it to occur, it has to occur in a state of nothingness. So creativity as a state is largely avoided by most people. They don't realize it. They wouldn't think about it this way. They probably wouldn't, it wouldn't even occur to them as being an issue. But the truth is that when you're creating, like all creativity, it comes from nothing. And in order to get to nothing, we have to have an enormous amount of self-trust. And to get to self-trust, we have to liberate ourselves from conditioning, enter a state of compassion where we have full approval and acceptance that we are whole and complete with room for improvement, or room for evolution, I should say, not improvement, that we are evolving all the time, and that who we are today is not who we will be tomorrow, but that there's nothing wrong with who we are today. That it's the addiction to improvement that creates the challenge. And the reason is because if we can see what there is to improve in ourselves, that's a future state. So understand the trick that our mind plays here. Evolution versus improvement is what we're talking about here. If I'm in full acceptance and approval of myself, and I know that I'm always creating space and room for my own evolution, that's different than if I'm in, that's a creative place to be, versus being in a critical place where I'm looking at myself and I'm saying there is a need for improvement here. Now, improvement is a future state, because suddenly what happens is we start imagining ourselves in that future state. And now it becomes the goal to become that person, to become that future state person. And then we begin to contort and to obsess over how to get there, what it's going to take for me to become that person. And so now I'm no longer in the present moment. Now I am operating from a place where the future is already mapped out in my mind. The goal is already set. The attachment to the goal is established. And everything I do in my life begins to contort and bend towards the goal, not what is needed in each moment as it emerges. So I'm missing moments. As each moment comes by in my life, I'm missing it because I'm only focused on that moment that I become my improved self. And so I'm not present. And if I'm not present, I can't enter a state of compassion. I can't enter a state of self-trust. And therefore, I can't enter a state of creativity because there's no space. There's no nothingness. I've filled it up with the goal and the objective of my own improvement. So it's very nuanced. The irony of the whole thing is that you will, quote unquote, improve more by dropping the need to improve. You will attain a state of more happiness, joy, peace, contentment, and even more accomplishment and productivity. But not more in terms of a measurable number, more in terms of its value, more in terms of its connection and alignment to who you actually are, if you're not trying to improve yourself. See, we live in a culture where everything and everyone is always on this journey of self-improvement. Companies can do better quarter over quarter. Managers can do better quarter after quarter. Teachers can do better. Doctors can do better. I can do better. You can do better. Everyone is trying to be better than they were today. But see, this is the wrong metric. This isn't about better. It's just simply about our own evolution, our own evolving, our own becoming. So having no goal, no objective, and instead seeking each day to liberate ourselves from our conditioning, to stand whole and complete as we are, with total approval for who we are, allowing that self-trust to begin to strengthen, which happens organically and naturally as we are in total approval of our whole and complete self. That self-trust continues to strengthen. And approaching each day not from a place of critique, but from a place of creative possibility. What is possible for me today as creator, without filling the space of what's going to happen and trying to project that into the space? What is possible for me today as a creator? I have an empty day ahead of me. I have a blank slate. I have what John Locke referred to as a tabula rasa available to me. And it's not about becoming better than I am because I'm already whole and complete. It's about creating something possible. That is the state that we can enter into and live in each day when we commit to the path of liberation, when we commit to the path of liberating ourselves from all of the conditioning, from the learned habits, the learned rules, the learned routines of who, how, and why we're supposed to be in this world. When we drop all that and we go within and we allow ourselves to begin experimenting with self-trust, instead of trusting the rules, instead of trusting the stories and the narratives we've all learned about how life is supposed to go, I think of all of the times I've been hearing over the last year with the, it's a quite dramatic time that we're living in right now, with the dislocation and the disruption that artificial intelligence is creating and robotics is creating. Our entire economy is being reborn right now and recreated. And I think of all the times that people say, I've heard it in the news, well, I played by the rules. I did what I was supposed to do. And yet it's not working out for me. The movement that we have had from an employee-based economy between 1945 and 1995 to the gig economy that emerged in 1995 and went to 2025 to this year, and now we're moving into an unknown space. An unknown space where being an employee is not going to be the norm anymore, where we're going to see enormous layoffs of employees who will have to step into the unknown of how they will make their living and what they will create for themselves. Now, they will Many of them, most of them will probably just try to consume their way out of this. And by that, I mean consuming the ideas, the rules, the structures of others who are creating new rules, new structures. Many will just consume and fall in line. But there is the opportunity, like there has never been in human history, for people, especially those who are already employees, to consider the possibility of creating themselves anew and creating a life based on what aligns and gives them life, and creating a way to support oneself and monetize that in a way that gives you life. But this notion of playing by the rules, the stories that we've all consumed about if you do this, then this will happen to you, and then that part doesn't happen to you. This is the stumbling block that we human beings continue to fall into, because we don't want to be with the unknown. We don't want to be with nothing, which is the only space that creativity can come from. And therefore, we create nothing of our own, because creativity only comes out of the spaciousness that we are able to create for ourselves. The more space you can create for yourself, the more creativity will emerge. The more you try to follow the rules, the more you're just consuming the dogma, the ideals, the ideas of other people, the less creativity you experience, the more conditioning you trap yourself in, and the less you are liberated. Each day we begin these meditations because each day we have to choose liberation. Our conditioning is so strong that if we do not connect to our liberated self, to the spaciousness that is within us, then we will just consume the day. We'll just get trapped in the momentum of all of the narratives and rules and regulations and stories of what we're quote unquote supposed to do and who we're supposed to be and why we're supposed to be it. We'll start looking for approval outside ourselves. Did I do good? I mean, you can see the parent-child relationship in full display between us and the systems and structures that are our conditioning. We moved from our parents' home when we became adults into the home of the conditioned structures. The rules of our parents' house were replaced for the rules of the society. And the approval of our parents was transferred to the approval of the society. Few of us have ever stood in the vacuum of our own liberation, of our own powerful self, without needing, requiring, looking for, desperately seeking the approval of someone or something outside of us. But when we liberate ourselves, we experience a state of compassion. We see that where we've come from was what brought us to this moment, and we have approval for it. And we also acknowledge we will not continue to live a life of conditioning. We will choose to be the creator of our life, to create a life by design, to stop tolerating a life by conditioned default. And that is what's possible and available to all of us, if we choose. That is the work of the Whole Life Architecture program. And my encouragement today, as we move into our observer watcher meditation, is to, in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, invite your higher self to reveal to you those areas most prescient right now, where you are firmly trapped in a story, in a conditioning story that is running either your whole life or part of your life. These things are very nuanced. As I said yesterday, your conditioning is like an onion. You continue to peel off layers thinking you finally got to the bottom of it, and then there's more to it, because you didn't become who you were in a mere few days or weeks. Your conditioning is decades in the making. And so having approval for the process that you're going through when you begin the journey of liberation is important, to not get frustrated and impatient because it will take time to unravel all of those layers of conditioning. And it begins each day with the choice to live a liberated creator's life versus an unliberated, conditioned life. This is the choice each morning. How will we show up today? As a creator, a possibility, or just going through the motions as a consumer of the existing systems, structures, and expectations? So let's move into our observer-watcher meditation this morning. The observer-watcher meditation is a technique that is training our mind to be an observer and watcher of life, training our mind to not identify with the character or caricature that we, in our conditioning, created ourselves to be, to fit in. When we learn to be the watcher-observer, we shift from being a walking, habituated, unconscious reaction to everything in our life, and we begin to become a conscious, liberated creator of our life. But you have to learn how to watch and observe ourselves, our behaviors, to watch and observe our thinking, to watch and observe our emotional states. Because we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions. Our brain thinks just like our heart beats and our lungs breathe. That's just what it does. We do not have to attend to every thought that enters our mind. And yet most people do. They are a walking reaction to their mind. Their mind is thinking them. And we do not have to be a reaction to our emotional states. We want to feel our emotions fully. We want to learn from the wisdom that our emotions are speaking to us. Our emotions are a guidance system that are telling us when we are in or out of alignment with our true self. That's what they're there to tell us. So we don't want to suppress them, but we also don't want to get attached and fixated on them. So being the watcher observer and learning how to do this is a very powerful tool to becoming a creator of your life. So let's move into it. Be in a comfortable seated position, taking a few deep cleansing breaths. And allowing yourself just to be in space, in nothingness. Allowing the thoughts of your mind to drift in and out of your awareness. You may find yourself starting to go into planning or thinking about your day. If you do, just catch yourself and return to the observer state. Let those thoughts drift in and out. Let your emotions rise like waves, up and down. Certain thoughts will trigger certain emotions. Let them come and go. Just be the watcher. Just observe. And see if your higher self has an insight for you today on some area of conditioning, some area of conditioning that you are trapped inside of, that you can't let go of, and that is creating anxiety for you or friction for you, creating suffering, because that's what our conditioning does. See if your higher self has something to reveal and enlighten you with. This idea that we have to learn everything from the outside is so not the case. Our inner wisdom is so potent if we learn to listen to it. And that's what we're practicing with this meditation. I will see you all in a few minutes. And welcome back, everybody. Reconnecting to the world without from the world within. Reconnecting to the conditioned world, the world of rules and expectations and narratives about why you should follow those, even if they don't align with who you are. And the opportunity you have today, like every day, is to step forward into the day as a creator of who you will be, of what you will do, why you will do it. And each day you have the opportunity to approach yourself from a place of full acceptance and trust, to enter that state of compassion, of non-attachment to what happened yesterday or what will happen tomorrow, but simply being able to show up whole and complete, aligned with yourself today, creating what's possible for yourself today. This is what's available each and every day. We get to stand, if we choose, in our liberated self and to create from nothing. Each day is new. We don't have to be like the statistic that 98% of what we did yesterday, we will do today and we will do tomorrow. Even while some of what you will do today will be what you did yesterday, you can do it from a different place. You can do it from a place of total alignment, total liberation, your ability to respond to what shows up without being a reaction and without reacting in a way that is conditioned. But it's a choice we all have to make. And that choice is available to you today. I want to wish you all a wonderful day, and we will continue our